Welcome home. Mom will call you for dinner at 10:30 p.m. Do not answer her. There is a small red hole in the wall. Do not go near it. Don't worry, it's been sealed. You must take a shower in the bathroom at 11 p.m. Be sure to lock the door. You are forbidden from turning on the lights or opening your eyes while you sleep. If you do, something truly terrible will happen to you. Finally, do not believe anything you see. My sister was lying face down on the bed. She looked like she was sleeping, but when the police arrived and turned her over, her face was a mess of rotting flesh, as if something had gnawed on it before she died. After my sister's death, my mom was so overcome with grief that she fainted. To keep me from worrying, she never told me what happened. But that night, I was away at college when I got a text from my sister, telling me to come home. Only after I got back did I learn that she had been sent to the crematorium that morning. So, who sent me the text? I asked my mom, but she said she'd had my sister's phone burned along with her other belongings. She started crying as she told me this, and I pushed down my own fear to hug and comfort her. My palms were slick with cold sweat. Because right then, the phone in my pocket was buzzing again. My dead sister was still texting me. There were still a lot of mourners outside, so after talking to me, Mom went back to tend to them. I immediately opened my laptop and searched for the location the message was sent from. Half an hour later, I collapsed into my chair. The IP address displayed on the screen was the crematorium. The texts kept coming. This time, 5 messages arrived in a row. The layout of the house has changed in many ways, but you must not let on that, you know. Stray cats have been climbing into the house. At night, their cries sound just like people. Some things are hidden in forgotten corners, things that were once subjected to terrible torture. You must control any sudden urges of curiosity. This house does not welcome disobedient children. Please reread the first word of each of the previous sentences. I slowly stood up and walked to the door. After a moment of hesitation, I yanked the door open. My mother's deathly pale face was right there. She smiled at me, her eyes like 2 black buttons. "Gina, you must be hungry. Come out and eat." The dining room. I looked stiffly at the time on my computer screen. The next second, I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. It was exactly 10:30 p.m. When I didn't respond, my mom turned and walked away. But the way she walked was strange. Her knees bent backward. Like she was walking in reverse. No. I knew my mom had arthritis, her joints were bad. I quickly shook my head to banish the absurd thought and sat back down at my desk. A moment later, the mourners outside seemed to have vanished. The living room was terrifyingly quiet, but I had a strong feeling that someone was slowly approaching my bedroom. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. This was all too weird. I didn't dare move. Suddenly, the door creaked open a crack. I spun around, and the bedroom light clicked off. I shot to my feet, but in the next instant, a pair of ice-cold hands grabbed my ankles. The hands were as hard as a skeleton's. All I could see was a clump of hair writhing on the floor. I screamed. The person on the floor suddenly started giggling. The laugh sounded familiar. I hauled her up and saw that it was the little girl from next door who suffered from anorexia. Because she hadn't been eating for years, she was rail thin and much smaller than other kids her age. Her face was gaunt and skeletal, which made her look a little scary. Her little prank had nearly given me a heart attack. "Your auntie asked me to come get you for dinner." After she spoke, she made a face at me and ran out, as if she was afraid I'd hit her. I hesitated for a second before following her. Mom was still in the kitchen dishing out food. The little girl had already sat down at the table and, without asking, had grabbed my chopsticks. On the table were chili fried eggs, spicy spare ribs, and fish poached in chili oil. I looked at the dishes, feeling that something was off, but the girl was already gobbling them down. "So good, so good, so good," she said loudly, then buried her entire head in the bowl and began shoveling rice into her mouth. Watching her, I started to feel a little hungry myself. I sat down next to her, about to grab a piece of fish, when I caught something in my peripheral vision. A stream of bright red liquid was trickling from the corner of her mouth. She was bleeding. But for some reason, the girl seemed completely unaware, stuffing more food into her mouth. She chewed greedily as more and more red liquid seeped from her lips, staining the front of her white shirt. I was terrified. I screamed and tried to grab the bowl from her, but her strength was suddenly immense. She pushed me away and ran for the door. Just before she left, she turned back, her mouth smeared with blood, and gave me a horrifying grin. The girl's mouth was wide open as she mouthed a few words at me. "It's almost 11. I didn't know what she meant. I ran, trembling, into the kitchen to get my mom, but she just looked at me, confused. The little girl from next door? Her condition got worse a few days ago. She's in the hospital on an 4 drip right now. An 4? The one with anorexia? That's right, Mom said. Just then, her phone buzzed. She looked down at it, then her eyes welled up with tears as she looked back at me. Your Auntie Davis just posted in the group chat. A few moments ago, the girl passed away. They couldn't save her. Impossible. Look at the dining table. I dragged my mom into the dining room, but when I saw the table, the words died in my throat. All the blood the girl had spilled was gone. In its place were chili peppers, scattered all over the table. Why were there so many peppers? I suddenly remembered that my mom had surgery on her esophagus. She couldn't eat spicy food. But tonight. I was about to ask when I saw a face emerge from the back of my mother's head. The face grew from behind her forehead. It had no eyebrows, its eyes were set far apart, and its mouth was a slash of bright red, twisted into a grotesque smile aimed right at me. Gina, what were you saying about the table? My mom asked with a gentle smile. The face on the back of her head moved its lips in sync. Nothing. I'm going to take a shower now, I stammered, my face pale. Behind me, my mom's voice was low and sinister. Gina, don't you dare sneak out of your room in the middle of the night. There are dangerous stray cats around. You have to be careful. I mumbled an agreement. As I passed my mom's room, I saw an iron cage inside. A dark, still shape was inside it, its eyes glowing with a faint green light. I instinctively wanted to get a closer look, but I heard light footsteps behind me, someone tiptoeing, one step at a time. My mom was following me. I remembered clearly that my mom hated animals that shed. She would never, ever keep a pet. One bizarre event after another was pushing me to my breaking point. I scrambled back to my bedroom to get undressed. I was certain now. I had entered some kind of twisted world. And in this world, if you didn't follow the rules, you died. Like the little girl from next door. Maybe my sister had been punished for breaking a rule, and she had used her life to send me all those texts. It was less than a minute to 11. I didn't have time to think. I rushed into the bathroom. But then, something horrifying happened. I realized the lock for the bathroom door was on the outside. The bathroom. The clock in the living room was ticking down its final 10 seconds. With each tick, I heard the sound of something dragging its shoes through water, slowly coming toward me. I could already picture my own dead body. But in the final second, a small shadow appeared on the frosted glass, like a cat. It gave the lock a gentle push, and with a click, the door was locked. I let out a long sigh of relief as my heart started beating again. I quickly turned on the shower, following my sister's rules. But as I was washing, I heard a faint, scratching sound from the other side of the door. It sounded like nails on glass, and the door was rattling slightly. Someone was grabbing the handle, trying to get in. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I quickly turned the water pressure down. It wasn't my imagination. There was definitely something moving out there, and it was getting more violent. I held my breath and crept toward the door. The shadow on the glass slowly came into full view. The thing trying to open the door was a half-rotted hand. And the longer I stared at the door, the clearer the frosted glass became. I could even see the hand's long, thick fingernails, black with filth, scraping against the door with a horrible screech. I couldn't help but gasp. The shower was still running, and I was sure the sound was loud enough to cover my breathing. But strangely, the moment I took that deep breath, the hand stopped. Just for a second. Then it vanished. I didn't dare open the door. I just stood there, blasting my body with hot water, trying to calm down. The steam in the bathroom was starting to make me dizzy. The mirror in front of me was completely fogged up. On a strange impulse, I reached out and wiped a spot clean. The next moment, I let out a blood-curdling scream. Because it wasn't a mirror in front of me. It was a pane of glass. As I wiped it, my mother's horrifying face was revealed, piece by piece. She was pressed against the glass, staring straight at me with a twisted grin. Her laughter was unnervingly high-pitched. Her hands clawed at the glass, as if she was about to climb in. I completely broke down, screaming and yanking at the bathroom door, trying to get out, but it was locked from the outside. I couldn't open it. Just as I felt hair brush against my back, the small black shadow appeared outside the door again. With the sound of the lock turning, I stumbled out in a panic. My bedroom was the closest room. I instinctively ran inside, slammed the door, and locked it. The main light was broken, but my bedside lamp had somehow turned itself on, as if someone had been waiting for me. I hesitated, then walked toward the bed. As I got closer, the feeling of being watched grew stronger and stronger. By the time I reached the side of the bed, my shirt was soaked with cold sweat. I remembered clearly that I'd been in such a rush after hearing about my sister's death that I hadn't even taken off my shoes. My slippers should have been neatly placed by the bed, just as I'd left them. But now, they were pointing toward the bed. Shoes facing the bed brings a ghost to your bed. I suddenly remembered the old scary saying and quickly shook my head to clear the thought. The bedsheet seemed to hang lower than before, almost touching the floor. It looked like it was hiding something. Someone was under my bed. The thought wasn't a question, it was a certainty. I froze. Then, with a sudden burst of courage, I took 2 steps back and bent down abruptly. The bedroom. Even though I had braced myself, imagining all sorts of terrible things I might see, when I saw what was hiding under the bed, I almost fainted. From its shape, it was the same cat-like animal that had locked the door for me. And if you looked at it from behind, you would definitely think it was a cat. But when I saw its face, I knew for sure that it was a person. A boy, no older than 10. But a cat's skin had been sewn onto his body, a perfect, seamless fit. Even his face was encased in the skin of a cat's head. The human cat's eyes looked like they'd been burned out, leaving 2 black, empty sockets. His mouth was sewn shut with fine, dense stitches. It was caved in, which meant all his teeth had been pulled out. I was terrified, but my gut told me he wouldn't hurt me. I instinctively backed away. The human cat hesitated for a moment, then quickly crawled out. He anxiously placed a paw on my leg, urging me to crawl under the bed. I didn't understand why, but he was insistent. As the seconds ticked by, the human cat seemed to sense something. He began to tremble uncontrollably, his blind face turning left and right in fear. I was just watching him, confused, until I heard a faint sound from outside the door. The sound of a key sliding into the lock. Oh God! Mom had a key to my bedroom. The lock turned softly. In the instant the door swung open, I managed to scramble under the bed. The human cat froze. He didn't turn around, but his rigid face betrayed his terror. The person behind him was obviously someone he knew well, someone he knew and feared more than anything. As the sound of tiptoeing footsteps entered the room, the human cat finally reacted. He was shaking. But no matter how scared he was, he didn't dare take a single step. He didn't even have the courage to run. I pressed myself flat against the floor, peering out through a tiny gap. The human cat suddenly shot backward, every hair on his body standing on end. It was only when he was dragged out of the room and to the side that I saw it, a hand in the darkness, pulling him back. After looking around the room, my mom left. The door was quickly shut. I waited a little while, making sure no one was coming back, before I dared to move my stiff body. In this twisted world, I could barely save myself, let alone worry about anyone else. Suddenly, my arm brushed against a box. I slowly crawled out from under the bed and opened it. Inside was a photo album. On the cover, a few lines were written in a crooked, blood-red script. "Welcome to my home." My breath hitched. I kept reading. "My name is Leo. I lived happily with my older sister and younger sister. Then one day, a woman came to our house. She lied and said she was our mother. But one night, a terrible scream came from my younger sister's room. I woke up and went to see what was wrong. I hid at the top of the stairs and saw that woman, carrying my sister's head, walk step by step toward my older sister. My older sister was already dying. In her last moments, she saw me crying with my hand over my mouth. She raised a finger to her lips and told me. But the woman found me anyway. She killed my beloved cat and sewed me into its skin. She burned my eyes out with fire and pulled out my teeth and tongue so I could never tell anyone what she did. She is a monster, a devil. She sewed my older sister's face onto the back of her head and cut off my younger sister's hand to use it to massage her shoulders. She forces everyone who comes into this house to call her mom, and in the end, she kills them all. So, my dear guest, when you see this photo album, do not hesitate. Seize any chance you get to kill her. Use the knife on the dining table and stab her through the throat without a second thought. Kill her, and your world will return to normal. A chill ran down my spine. I opened the album with trembling hands. The first picture was of two girls and a boy sitting on a rocking chair. One girl was slightly older than the other girl and the boy looked very young. The sun was shining, and they were smiling happily. A small cat was lying next to them on the lawn, sunning its belly. The second picture was also of the two girls and the boy. They were in the kitchen. The boy was being mischievous, with cream on his nose, and the two girls were laughing. The third picture showed the two girls and the boy, happy. The fourth, too. The fifth, as well. But starting from the middle of the album, the mood began to change. The bright colors suddenly turned gloomy, like a storm was coming. The boy seemed to sense something. He sat between the girls, still grinning with his little baby teeth, but his smile was no longer pure and bright. It was tinged with worry. He would stare off into the flower bushes for no reason, as if someone was hiding deep inside them. From that photo on, the boy never looked directly at the camera again. His gaze was always turned toward something unseen, filled with a faint dread. And in the last photo of the album, the two girls were gone. There was only a woman who had suddenly appeared. She had her arms around the boy, a wide smile on her face. At first glance, it looked like the boy was being held tightly in her embrace. Like a mother holding her beloved son. But after a moment of thought, I tilted the photo. From this new angle, I saw with horror that the boy's arms and legs had been cut off. He was being propped up against the woman. And in the very corner of the photo, you could see the tip of a bloody cat's tail. Good night. Just then, the light went out. I immediately realized that, despite my frayed nerves, I had to follow the rules and go to sleep. I hugged the photo album, quickly lay down on the bed, and squeezed my eyes shut. Lying in the dark, I felt like I was on pins and needles, my whole body itching. My mind was a mess, and I started thinking uncontrollably. There was one more crucial text from my sister. There is a key person. This person's life or death is tied to the fate of this cursed world. Could that key person be the woman? The human cat's name was Leo. He once had an older sister and a younger sister. A strange woman came in and destroyed everything. From his reaction, this strange woman was the person who now looked like my mom. The older sister, the younger sister. I suddenly realized, mapping it to everything I'd experienced in this world, that Leo's murdered older sister was like my sister, and the little girl from next door was like Leo's younger sister. They had both died in extremely cruel ways. My sister became the woman's second, horrifying face, and the other girl became the disembodied hand she used. Leo still had his own consciousness, but he had been turned into a human cat. The thought made the hair on my body stand on end. I didn't want to be turned into some grotesque monster, not quite human, not quite ghost. Suddenly, I felt the door open without a sound. A dark figure walked in, came to my bedside, and stood there, motionless. I immediately tried to steady my breathing, pretending to be asleep. But horribly, the more I tried to fake it, the harder it was to breathe normally. I could feel my chest rising and falling dramatically. My attempt to seem non-existent had completely backfired. And the person watching me was now intrigued. I felt her bend down, her face stopping just inches from mine. I felt an icy, dead breath on my skin. My heart sank. A cold sweat beaded on my forehead. To my despair, I realized I couldn't control my body anymore. I was trembling. It was a warm night, but I was shivering and breaking out in a cold sweat. "Are you asleep, Gina?" As if by instinct, I rolled over, trying to get away from her face. Luckily, the woman's voice disappeared. I didn't let my guard down. I kept my ears pricked until I was sure all sounds had ceased. But I still couldn't stop my body from shaking. My back was so cold, so freezing, like I was lying in front of an air conditioner vent. Suddenly, I rolled over and turned my head. The woman was lying right behind me. "It's over." I realized then that I had broken one of my sister's rules. You are forbidden from turning on the lights or opening your eyes while you sleep. If you do, something truly terrible will happen to you. It's dark now. The naughty child hides under the bed, the good child lies on the bed. Shoo, everyone be good and go to sleep. The child hiding under the bed, it was just me and my sister in this house. Where did a third child come from? I didn't have time to think. I felt my bed start to shake, the vibrations growing stronger and stronger. Soon, a loud noise came from under my bed. Something was pushing up from below. A few seconds later, an ice-cold hand clamped down on my ankle. It was that disembodied hand again. The balcony door was open, it must have gotten in that way. The hand looked like a child's, but its strength was terrifying. I couldn't break free no matter how hard I struggled. I clutched the bedsheets tightly. Through my tears, I saw the woman in front of me, her eyes wide with eager anticipation. The hand started to drag me off the bed and toward the space underneath. At the last possible second, I shrieked, "Leo, save me." Those 4 words were a primal instinct. He was the only one in this world who could help me, even though I knew he had been dragged into another room by the same hand not long ago. He was probably in danger himself. But surprisingly, when she heard those words, not only did the hand stop moving, but the woman in front of me jolted violently. "Leo," the woman repeated the name. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something, and she froze completely. It wasn't my imagination. Both of the woman's faces showed the same expression of terror. I stared at her in disbelief. Her eyes were filled with an uncontrollable panic. It was the kind of fear a sane person feels when faced with something truly, deeply horrifying. I couldn't understand it. She was the killer, yet she was so afraid of her victim. But the fact was, the disembodied hand vanished in a flash, and the woman stumbled back, trembling. In the darkness, the woman's sinister voice spoke. "You've been tainted by something terrifying. He's a monster. You have no idea, everything that's happened in this house is his doing. Leo, he's a terrifying madman, burdened by a curse. I can let you leave this house, but first, you have to kill him. Otherwise, we're all going to die." 7. Daybreak. Just as the woman finished speaking, the sun suddenly rose. She seemed to have forgotten everything that had just happened. Her gentle expression returned, just like the way my real mom used to look at me. "Gina, you be a good girl and study at home, okay? Mom's going out to buy groceries." She patted my head and floated out the door. My mind was still in turmoil. The woman said Leo was the root of all the misfortune in the house, and her instinctive reaction to his name certainly seemed genuine. But Leo had saved me twice. The fact that he'd been turned into a human cat was something I'd seen with my own eyes, and the photo album wouldn't lie. After a moment's hesitation, I chose to trust Leo. The woman had clearly tried to kill me, so it was better to strike first. I decided to wait for the woman to leave and then go to the dining room to find that knife. But when I got to my bedroom door and tried to pull it open, I found it was locked from the outside. The woman had trapped me in the room. I pounded on the door, rattling the handle, but it was no use. I shouted Leo's name, but no one came to help. I knew the woman would be back soon. Just as I was about to break down, I noticed that all my struggling had knocked a lot of plaster off the wall near my shoulder. We hadn't lived in this new house for very long. This shouldn't be happening. I hit the wall again and found that plaster only fell from one specific spot. I suddenly understood. Part of the wall was loose. I tried knocking on it and realized it was hollow. As I hit it harder, more and more plaster fell away, revealing a small red hole. I instantly thought of my sister's text. "There is a small red hole in the wall. Do not go near it. Don't worry, it's been sealed." But this red hole. The more I looked at it, the more horrified I became. It wasn't just red. It looked like the crazed, bloodshot veins of a human eyeball. I took a deep breath and stepped back. When I could see the whole wall, I noticed a large patch that was a darker color. It had distinct lines. It looked like a girl, curled up and sleeping. I pinched my thigh hard to calm myself and used every object I could find in the room to dig. As the plaster flaked away, the stench of old, rotting corpses filled the air. Finally, to my horror, I uncovered two girls' bodies, sleeping inside the wall. One of them had had her face peeled off. The other was missing a hand, and her head had been reattached later. Both girls' bodies had been neatly cut apart and pieced back together, like a jigsaw puzzle. The only missing piece was the younger girl's hand. The physical shock was nothing compared to the shock to my soul. From this, it seemed everything Leo said was true. It all fit. But, the bodies were covered in dents, crisscrossing cat scratches. Every scratch was deep enough to see the bone. On the faceless corpse's bare skull, a large X was carved from her scalp down to her neck. What kind of insane hatred was this? Leo was lying to me. The human cat existed before the two girls died. The Leo from back then was no longer purely human. I stared at the two bodies, a cold dread washing over me. Was the woman really the one who killed them? And in the younger girl's remaining hand, I saw a tightly clenched piece of paper. It took a lot of effort to get it out. Through the faded writing, I could just make out the words. "Mom, my brother hid my sister in the wall. Now, he's going to kill me." So he was the killer. A deep fear gripped my heart. I didn't understand why Leo would lie to me. I stumbled backward in disbelief and suddenly stepped on something soft. I turned to look. It was the human cat. He was standing there, watching me, as still as a statue. Splicing. In that moment, the blood drained from my face. I clutched the note in my hand, my muscles tense. It's over. He must know everything. Is he going to kill me to silence me? But to my surprise. What's wrong? The human cat wrote on the floor, dipping his paw in ink. He seemed just the same as yesterday. I was shocked to find that although he was just a child, his handwriting was beautiful, almost like a master calligrapher's. But why would he ask me that? I turned around, confused, and saw that the wall behind me was somehow back to normal. The note in my hand was now just a simple medicine instruction sheet. Nothing. You just startled me, I said, quickly steadying my breath. I moved behind him, trying to figure out how I could kill him. But just as I was about to make my move, the words he wrote on the floor caught my eye. This world is controlled by that woman. I have no power over my own body, so I can't kill her. Just like back then, after my sisters died, the woman forced me to desecrate their bodies. I had no way to resist. I paused. Could the wounds have been inflicted after they were already dead? Then what about the note in the little girl's hand? The human cat continued to write. She loses her memory after every night and repeats the things she's done before. Before this, she was abandoned by her husband and had to raise a son on her own. When she first came to our house, she lied and told us she was our mother and that we had a brother. Then one night, that boy tried to kill my younger sister. We called the police and found out the woman's secret. After reading those 2 sentences, my doubts vanished completely. Leo. I said slowly. The human cat seemed not to have been called that name in a long time. He froze for a moment, then nodded. So, if I stab the woman in the throat with the knife from the dining table, this world will end, right? The human cat was ecstatic. He nodded frantically. He wrote. Yes. Then give me her legs, so she can never come back to life. Then you can escape. Okay. Tonight, when she's cooking again, I'll do it. I leaned down and gently stroked the human cat's scarred face. I took in every inch of his skin. His face was grotesque and terrifying, but you could still make out what he looked like before he was disfigured. The human cat seemed to have not been treated so gently in a long time. He sniffed my fingers deeply, his body trembling slightly. It's been so long since anyone has treated me like a person. I always wonder, if I had all my arms and legs, would I also be? It's such a shame. You must have been a very handsome child, I said sincerely. It really was a shame. Nightfall. The woman didn't come back all day. I copied the disembodied hand's movements from the night before and climbed from the balcony into her room. Her room was filled with books and not much else. Even the boxes under her bed were full of books. It seemed this woman was widely read. Most of the books weren't classics, but various collections of folk legends and strange tales. The paper was yellowed, the corners curled. It looked like she had read some of them many times. Among them was a thin medical book. On the last page, a line was written in a small, elegant script, "Mommy was useless. I couldn't take care of you all. You all." If what Leo said was true, and the woman only had one son, what did you all mean? I closed the book and sat on the desk, flipping through some of the others. The sky had darkened without me realizing it. The days and nights in this world were always so short. Under the bed, I found one last line of writing left by the human cat. There will be a carving knife on the dining table tonight. If you don't kill her, she will use it to kill you. Night. 10:30 p.m. Gina, you must be hungry. Come out and eat. The familiar voice sounded. I looked up and saw my mom standing in the dark doorway, staring at me. I stared back at her and said nothing. Gina, you must be hungry. Come out and eat. She repeated, her lips curling into a strange smile. Okay. The woman didn't seem to expect me to agree so readily. I followed her to the dining room and saw, as expected, a carving knife on the table. That had never been there before. Gina, this is what Mom made for you. Chili fried. The rest of her words were cut off. Because I had decisively plunged the knife into her throat. The woman's eyes bulged as she stared at me. A hoarse growl escaped her throat, and the face on the back of her head appeared, contorted in agony. Her whole body stretched upward, growing so tall it nearly broke through the ceiling. I took the chance to run for the door. Don't leave me. No one can ever leave my house. The woman shrieked, and the disembodied hand shot out in response. But the gash in her throat was widening. Finally, her head fell off with a thud, and her entire body, along with the hand, crumbled into dust. But her legs remained, falling to the floor like wooden logs, perfectly intact. Was that it? If I stopped now, I would be making a grave mistake. I turned and dragged the human cat out from behind the door, where he had been silently watching, his body trembling with excitement. The smile hadn't yet faded from his face. He looked at me in terror as I plunged the knife into his throat as well. I threw the dying human cat to the ground, along with the new limbs he had just grown. The 2 arms were the ones I'd seen in the wall, and the legs were the ones the woman had just dropped. What a shame. You were so close to being completely free, weren't you? He was a whole person now. I could finally kill him like one. Meeting his hate-filled eyes, I smiled and said, "This family certainly deserved to die. But you already got your revenge before I ever came here." The human cats passed. Let me tell you what really happened in this house. This home originally belonged to a mother and her 2 daughters. The 3 of them relied on each other, living off the meager pension from their dead husband and father. But it was never enough. The woman would often read stories to her daughters, playing the role of a teacher, because for some reason, the girls couldn't, or wouldn't, go to school. Because they were poor, the woman often bought cheap, obscure books from street stalls. The girls were severely malnourished and would often faint. The woman was desperate. Then one day, she brought home a little boy. The boy was well behaved, with big, dark eyes. He was already 8, but because he'd never eaten or dressed well, he was short for his age. Meeting her daughter's confused gazes, she seemed to make a great resolution. "From now on," she said, her voice trembling, "we will have a very good income." The woman had read a story. Following the method in the book, she cruelly turned the little boy into a living human cat. In an old collection of historical anecdotes, a story is recorded: 2 men were seen leading a dog. This dog was much larger than normal, incredibly smart, and, most bizarrely, could speak. It could recite poetry and sing songs. People were amazed, but also suspicious. Was it really a dog? The truth was that human traffickers would kidnap children, smear their skin with a special potion that made it rot away, and then cover them in dog hair. As the new skin slowly grew in, the dog hair would become permanently attached to the person. This was how the cruel human dog was created. The woman had seen the boy's incredible handwriting skills on the street. She got an idea. She took all the money the family had and bought him from his parents. She forced the boy to practice calligraphy day and night, all so that this human cat could one day perform his astonishing skills on the street. She succeeded. Under her constant abuse, the boy seemed to truly become a cat. He seemed to forget he was ever human, spending his days just practicing his writing, eating the family's leftovers, and crawling into his cage when he was tired. When he performed on the street, he was completely obedient to the woman's commands. Gradually, the family became wealthy. The woman relaxed her watch over the human cat, no longer chaining him up wherever she went. But she never imagined that the human cat had never forgotten he was once human. His hatred for the woman and her family had only grown stronger with each passing day. It was on that night that the human cat broke out of his cage, stormed into the house, and killed the mother and her 2 daughters. The 2 girls were born with a disability, a form of polio, and couldn't walk. He easily climbed onto their beds, peeled the skin from the older daughter's face, and ripped off the arm of the younger daughter who had loved to beat him. As for the woman, he didn't touch her. He wanted her to suffer the most extreme pain in the world, the madness of losing her children. You're probably wondering how I figured all this out. I gently stroked the human cat's face. It was because of your face. The 2 girls had identical, terrifying birthmarks on their faces. Their skeletal remains also showed identical atrophy in their lower limbs. But you didn't. That was enough to prove that you were the one who never belonged in this family to begin with. A few hours ago, I sat at the woman's desk and, based on the wear and tear of the pages, found the book she read most often. It was a thick collection of strange Chinese folk tales. Between pages 1030 and 1100, it recorded a story about turning a living person into an animal to attract tourists and make money. If I had waited just a little longer before giving you back your limbs, I would be the one lying here right now, wouldn't I? The thing that killed the girls was a purple poison etched into their bones, a poison delivered by the human cat's claws. I lowered my gaze gently. Look at your paws. You didn't even wipe off the ink. Is that because it's covering up the poison? The boy was indeed a victim, but his mistake was targeting me. The human cat slowly closed his eyes, and with them, his last bit of resentment and hatred vanished. The world around us began to fall apart. The sun came up. Experience complete. I snapped my eyes open. I took off the headset and saw the shop owner and my friend giving me a thumbs up. I was one of the first people to test out the store's new VR murder mystery game. In just 3 short hours, I had been through one terrifying ordeal after another. It was all so realistic that, once I entered the game world, I became completely immersed, forgetting whether I was in reality or a simulation. There were many times I truly thought I was going to die. Fortunately, in the end, I used my training as a med student to figure out the truth and successfully kill the world's mastermind, the human cat. So, was The Human Cat chapter okay? The owner asked me cautiously. If you think it's good, we'll invest more in this game. Do you have any suggestions for us? My friend chimed in eagerly, yeah, I'm next. You looked so scared in there, I was getting freaked out just watching you. Give me some tips, a few hints. I opened my mouth to say something, but the fear I'd just shaken off was still caught in my throat. My mouth was too dry to make a sound. After a long moment, I thought back on my experience and summed it up. Following the rules is always the right move. But maybe the most important thing I did right was to firmly and consistently doubt everything. Which, of course, confirmed the final message my sister had sent me in the game. Finally, do not believe anything you see.